They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, we all have thousands and thousands of photographs in our phones that we never get to share with anybody these days. So I figured, why not share them? Welcome to the photo dump. This is Riley's Reptiles. Starting this episode off with a banger. This is my absolute favorite alligator in the entire world. Rest in peace, Mary Lou. This was the very first alligator that I got to really work with on a one-on-one basis quite frequently for many, many years back in Santa Barbara. She was an ambassador of the species to me and many other folks in the area. Was there since the zoo opened, lived into her late 60s, if not 70s, if I'm not mistaken, and was just a wonderful animal. Very smart, intelligent, knew what we were about. We knew what her line was, and we never crossed it, and everybody was super respectful, and she was such a great animal. Pleasure to work with, did a lot of training with. In fact, if you go on YouTube and look up alligator training Santa Barbara Zoo, you will see a very, very old video of me training Mary Lou, doing some target training way back. I don't even know how long ago. So yeah, she was the best. Alligators are super smart, and I was blessed to have worked with Mary Lou. Normally, I'm not a proponent of sharing any sort of feeding content or anything like that, but most people find it quite fascinating to learn that there are some snakes out there that eat other snakes. This is one of my black-tailed crebos that I've since rehoused, but this was very, very long time ago, and I had a carpet python baby of some sort of baby pass away, and rather than let it go to waste, I figured I would feed it to the crebo. They are notorious for eating other snakes naturally in the wild. It is a natural part of their diet, and I figured waste not, want not. It's kind of weird to throw away a deceased baby animal, and I'm not really one for burying them, so yeah, it just seemed like the appropriate thing to do, and sure enough, they had no problem taking some, so they were able to take any sort of stillborns or anything like that. But interesting little tidbit, fun little share. So this is a very old photograph of a rattlesnake that might actually still be on display at the Santa Barbara Zoo. I would have to double check. But this is a wonderful Southern Pacific rattlesnake that I had the pleasure of caring for many, many years as a keeper at Santa Barbara. And this animal was part of a mixed species exhibit where it lived for years and years with a gopher snake. And they lived great together. We would just separate for feeding, and it was a great example of how these animals live in sort of the same environments and do sort of the same things and get along. And get along they did. And in fact, this animal was so placid, it would rarely even strike aggressively for its food. You could sort of just place it in front of it, and it would just start eating. It was the most placid rattlesnake I've ever worked with. Wouldn't even rattle. I'd never seen that thing upset at all. And it was gorgeous and super melanistic. So, wonderful snake. This is a photograph I'm actually quite proud of. This was taken several years ago by myself when I was learning to do some black glass photography. This animal, among many others, were photographed along a big 4-foot piece of glass. Set it up in my living room, turned lights off, set a big black backdrop curtain behind it that you can sort of just barely see, and then had some remote firing strobes behind it that would bounce off the wall and shoot light off the walls, ceilings, and everything, so that the animal was nearly perfectly illuminated from all sides. It was a lot of fun learning the photography process. Getting the animals to sit still was a bit of a challenge sometimes, but ultimately, after some work and patience and many sessions of this, some great photographs were to come out of this, and so we got some great results. This is an old photograph of my male bredli, who is a much older, mature current breeder now, but one of my favorite shots. All right, and dipping back into my Santa Barbara Zoo history, this is my favorite Burmese python that I've ever had the pleasure of working with, although I love the species as a whole and really enjoy working with them. This guy really sowed the seeds of that sort of infatuation for me. This is Chief, and you can actually still see him on display at the Santa Barbara Zoo. He's got to be like 24 years old right now. And last I recall weighing him many years ago, he was about 11 feet and 45, 50 pounds or so. I'm sure he's put on a little bit of size since then, but he's an old dude, and he's been spoiled with massive walk-in rooms, climbing, like he can climb rock walls and things, even though it's probably not the best for him. Big guys like that fall hard, and they crack some ribs, and he's certainly no stranger to that. But he's a tough old guy, and he's been pampered and loved at that zoo forever, and I was blessed to have many fond years with him, and he's a doll. Thank you for taking this photographic journey down memory lane with me. Join me next week for some more. This is Riley's Reptiles. You've just been watching The Photo Dump.